I have a unique background that has compiled into the ministry or the IT ministry that I offer. I, in college, studied finance. That was my official degree, was, numbers and money, if you will, and learning how to manage those kind of things. Later on, I ended up in the IT field, and that's a whole whirlwind of events that got me into that. But along the lines there as well, I studied languages, so communication, particularly Mandarin, Arabic, and Spanish. And so I was able to get a strong grasp of how to communicate and how to understand numbers. And then my professional career drove me into IT. And so what God has done with those three facets, if you will, finances, communication, and IT, is He's put me in a position to uniquely offer a perspective on faithful stewardship in IT.
Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers, where we go into the back office of ministry and learn how to uplift our church members and have an impact on our communities through technology. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io. With over 380,000 churches in the United States and Canada, there's a huge need for technical ministries to step up and help these churches advance not only into the age that we're in, but advance in their ability to reach and serve their communities. And that's something that our guest has taken to heart today. Hello, my name is Hugh Plappert, and welcome to Church Tech Careers. Our guest today is Zachary Norris, owner of Lemtown, and he works with the Rivers Church in Castle Rock, Colorado. Welcome, Zachary.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the chance to hop on with you and help out in any way I can.
Yeah. So we like to encourage people who are looking at getting started. And we love those start stories of that boldness of stepping out in faith and stepping up and helping in church tech. So let's go back and talk about how you get started.
Yeah, definitely. It's a whole long story, but short version of it is I was in IT for a while. Started at a fiber company, worked at a voice company after that, jumped out and kind of did my own thing and stumbled into sort of the church space, notably because I saw that there was a particular need, much like what you said at the beginning of the podcast here. There are so many churches and there are so few church IT professionals. And so I saw this major gap as to a space where I could serve and offer my time, talents, and treasures to support the kingdom in any way I could. And so it was just by chance that ended up getting pushed into this. And God has been able to use me for his kingdom in some amazing ways. And it's been a blast doing so.
Wow. So there's this gray line that's developed in between traditional IT and AVL. So you came in on the side of the traditional IT, is that correct?
Traditional IT, yes. I am by no means an expert on AVL, though the irony of that is that I serve on the AV team at my home church. So I've been able to learn a little bit more about that and understand
Good,
a little bit more about that space. So,
good. Um, so how did you get started in the local church itself?
yeah. So my wife and I were attending a church in the Denver area for a while. It's a great church and we had a great community there. And it just so happened that there was a church that was about to be planted down in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is about, I would say, 30 minutes or so, give or take, south of Denver, 45, depending on where you're at. And so we ended up making that leap to go and help plant that church. And over the course of what was about plus or minus 2 years or so that we'd been involved there, we've seen God do some amazing work through that church and have been heavily involved in trying to help lift that up off the ground. So the pastors there are wonderful people. The launch team there, wonderful people. And now the consistent congregation that attends are also wonderful people. And it has been an incredible experience being a part of that.
So in traditional IT, we work a lot with data, right?
Yes.
Numbers, bits and bytes. That doesn't sound like ministry. So
Yes.
what applications have you seen that you were, processing data, helping with that administrative work, but it bared fruit in the ministry?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say for myself, I have a unique background that has compiled into the ministry or the IT ministry that I offer. I in college studied finance. That was my official degree was, numbers and money, if you will, and learning how to manage those kind of things. Later on, I ended up in the IT field, and that's a whole whirlwind of events that got me into that. But along the lines there as well, I studied languages, so communication, particularly Mandarin, Arabic, and Spanish. And so I was able to get a strong grasp of how to communicate and how to understand numbers. And then my professional career drove me into IT. And so what God has done with those three facets, if you will, finances, communication, and IT, is he's put me in a position to uniquely offer a perspective on faithful stewardship in IT for the clients that I work with. And so a lot of what I do at Lamb Telecom is IT advisory services. Generally, I'm helping to navigate different budget season items or perhaps a change from one solution to another in the most financially and just general stewardshiply way. Not exactly sure the right word to put there, but oftentimes that might include finances. It might include the right words to provide to leadership to help them understand IT. So bringing it down a notch from the technical piece and down to plain English to present to an executive team. Or perhaps it might just be providing some sort of advisory service on what general services are in the market. So it's a very unique niche, if you will. But of course, those three skills combined have been able to uniquely position Lamb Telecom and I guess myself to serve ministries in that capacity from IT.
What is the number one area of need that people come to you for when they're got an IT project in the church?
Yeah, yeah. It's tough to pick one, but I think that the primary need is really just a lack of time. I think that's the core of all of it, is it comes down to a lack of time. Often I see that most IT professionals, especially in the ministry space, are quite overextended because it's IT can often be seen as a cost and not necessarily a strategic addition to a team when it comes to the ministry world. And in the secular world, often we see that it's a strategic addition to a team because it pushes business forward in the secular world.
Mm.
It's tougher for people to understand that IT can push ministry forward. So I usually see those teams are less well staffed than they could be. I often see that maybe IT is an ancillary ministry from someone who's doing something else. Maybe they are both the facilities manager and the IT manager, or perhaps they are a youth pastor and an IT manager. Usually it's an overextended role. And what that looks like is either A, there is not enough time to care for some of the more detail oriented stuff, and they're forced to focus on the broad picture to keep things running. Or B, they may just not have enough time to do anything in general, and they might need someone to come in and help them navigate that process as a whole. So, the core of its time and what that usually results in is either poor contracts. So, let's say a contract is way too expensive for what it should be. Example of that, we've seen some churches save close to, well, I guess probably one of the biggest savings was close to 70 or 80% on one circuit that we were able to reduce in the cost just from a bad contract that was there that wasn't able to be looked at. So I've seen that on the financial side, but also on just, I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And I'm not sure what type of solutions to use. Could you help me understand what the market is showing so that we could implement a proper solution to support our teams? So it really kind of depends on the individual and the situation that they've been in and maybe what legacy IT environment they've inherited. But oftentimes it's a lack of time overall. That's
Mm.
the core issue.
So you are a super vocational person, right? You serve churches, that's your heartbeat and your primary, but you do pick up extra work from nonprofits and businesses.
Yes.
You work a secular job as well as working in the church. How do you juggle all
Yes, I would say not as well as I wish I could is the answer to that.
that?
But the short version is a very strong sense of organization. I like to think that I'm very detail oriented, but I wish that I was a little bit more organized. I've got so many spreadsheets of different information and plenty of things that are just kind of operating in the background, plenty of notes, lots of tabs open on the computer. But yeah, it's just a matter of logging everything. I have a note for just about every conversation that I've had. I have notes for next steps on everything that's supposed to happen. And I keep a strong cadence in follow up. And I feel like that's important for myself as well as my clients because I need to offer that to my clients too, because they're just as busy as I am. And so,
Mhm.
in order for them to continue working on a project, it's partially, if not almost all of my responsibility to continue to push them forward on different projects so that they don't lose track of them as well. If this is something that they are planning to do for a business or for a ministry or for a nonprofit, whatever project they're trying to accomplish, it's my responsibility to work with them and keep a good cadence so that they can move forward on that project as well.
Anybody who's been in IT for any time has had that moment of disaster. What's an example of one in the church tech world that you encountered? It was like serious, but yet the good Lord helped you navigate and get through it.
Yeah, I have my favorite example of that. I've been asked this question before, and I think for the foreseeable future, it will remain the same answer. In particular, I recall, let me give some backstory first. We do a lot of phone systems, hence the name telecom. We do all sorts of other stuff phones, internet, cybersecurity, backup, disaster recovery, managed services, you name it, all of the stuff. In particular, though, we do a lot of phone systems. A client of ours moved from one phone system to another. They'd signed the contract. We set up the port. Everything was ready to go. But in the phone world, you are not supposed to cancel your old contract until the new numbers have been ported to the new carrier or until the old numbers have been ported to the new carrier. What had happened with this client is I personally did not make it clear enough that that was an incredibly important piece is to not cancel the old contract until the numbers have been ported completely. They unfortunately canceled that contract. And when they canceled the contract, that meant that we had effectively no way to get the numbers back that they had,
Mhm.
the old phone numbers, the DIDs that were on the account. And I will tell you to this day, it was only through a miracle of God that we got those numbers back. You hear countless stories of losing ported phone numbers when that happens. There are so many warnings not to do that kind of thing, not to cancel your contract in the middle of a port for that exact reason. And by God's grace, we saw those numbers come back for the client. I was very frustrated that the client had done that, but again, it was still my responsibility to make that more clear to them. And thankfully, we were blessed with some grace and the numbers were able to be recovered. But that was quite the incredible and miraculous experience, to say the least.
I say you got a good sermon illustration there for mercy and grace.
Yes, absolutely.
What's your project is probably all of them, but is there any really unique project that you're involved in where you saw the hand of God intervene and bring about fruit in the ministry when working in IT?
Yeah. I think for me, when I think about that perspective could differ from person to person. For me, it's really about just like a miraculous discovery of savings and that kind of thing. I really love to see money just come back into the kingdom. It's all God's money anyway, but I like to think that more than likely God wants a church to use the money instead of one of the big carriers. An example of that was there was this circuit that was a point to point circuit for a client. They were paying about $4,400 a month, if I remember correctly on that. We were able to double the bandwidth and the new cost was $1,600 a month. So it reduced the cost significantly, doubled the
Mhm.
bandwidth, increased the capacity of the ministry, but not only that, offered them almost $3,000 a month to spend on other things that could support people in need within the
Mhm.
church, or potentially could just beef up the IT team. That's
Mhm.
almost a head count if you really
Mhm.
think about it. It's a part-time head count that could help out. Stuff like that, even just those small little wins, those are what are most miraculous to me and most exciting is the
Mhm.
amazing savings that I've seen with some of these churches just by the step of let me listen to you, let me see what we could do better, and we go fishing for different opportunities, and outcomes are exceptional for these churches.
Yeah. So ministry does have to run on money,
Yes.
but there's not like tons of it out there.
Yes.
And when you're budgeting for an IT project, people think it means you're asking for money, but you're a finance guy. And it's not so much asking for the money as is creatively applying the money to get the impact.
Yes.
What are some maybe two or three key points of view on financing IT projects that you could share with the audience to encourage them, when they're trying to do what they need to do with the limited resources they have?
Yeah. I think number one, if you are an IT professional in a church, just recognize that you are not a cost center, but rather a strategic missional advancement team. The money that you spend as an IT professional and the money that you budget as an IT professional is used to advance the kingdom. And the moment that you can grasp that, it allows you to differently describe the work that you do and to more effectively communicate to leadership what you do. I think the other thing too is that it's important to look at some of the commoditized services that you're using right now to see what cost savings opportunities there might be to reallocate money into another more strategic need. For example, your phones and internet. If you can save money there to pay for your cybersecurity or managed services solutions, that kind of reallocation of money is a great way to make sure that you're not having any sort of budgetary issues, but you meet the needs of both your team and the broader congregation and church. So those two things I think are very important.
So there's this debate about freeware, right? Freeware is good for keeping the budget down, but how much do you sacrifice in processes, quality, and control of free?
Yeah, I think it very much so depends on the freeware. I am a firm believer in just paying for the things that work. I certainly have my moments where I'm quite thrifty. I grew up very thrifty and I would always be looking for a deal. But in some cases, it may be that it's not right to look for the free deal, but rather to look for the deal that's going to be the most cost effective for the benefit that it's going to be providing the church. So when it comes to freeware, yes, it may work, but there's often hidden costs behind that from management to even the potential for poor infrastructure and really anything in between. It's usually the hidden stuff that will catch up to you when it comes to the freeware. Whereas if you're paying for a solution, there is an obligation for the vendor to provide you with a service.
Yeah, Facebook's been famous for changing the rules.
Yes.
And everybody thought
Yes.
that was a way to go do free things. What's that passion that gets you out of bed in the morning?
I would definitely say, in particular, it would be advocating for people. I really like to advocate and to support people. And what that looks like is a whole slew of different things. That could be personal and backing people up, or it could be in business and working with churches, for example, being for their contracts, right? I get really excited about what I do, as I'm sure you can tell from the way that I'm talking about it. I really love to serve churches and advocate for them to ensure that they're taken care of from an IT perspective. But just overall, I love to get up and make sure that people are taken care of and that the little guy, so to say, is cared for. So
All right. Well, speak to that person who may be thinking about getting started or been asked to help, and then maybe the person who just has been starting working in church tech. Get a word of encouragement for them.
Yeah, I would say just continue to seek the Lord's guidance on what your career in church tech looks like. Personally, I would have never thought that I would be working in the industries. I hate using the word industry, but I'm sure we all understand that. The industry that I'm in. I never thought that that would be the case based on several years ago. And so I would just really encourage anybody in this space to follow the Lord's guidance, to let it happen, and to work as hard as you can. I think the other thing too is to just put in a little bit more effort than the next guy. Even the smallest little bit of effort can really make a big difference. And I believe that that's shown through something like 1 Corinthians 10:31, where whether you eat or drink or whatsoever you do it all to the glory of God. That's something that I really take hold of, is doing something to the glory of God. Whatever it is, do it to excellence. Whatever it is, don't cut corners. And especially when it comes to ministry, where it's probably the most important thing on this planet that you could possibly be doing. You have to make sure that you're not cutting corners. You have to make sure that you're doing things with excellence. Failure is totally okay. Messing up is totally okay, but not doing it to your full capacity is where I believe that there is a challenge. And so I think that there's definitely a beauty in doing things to the maximum that you can do and then letting God do the rest in the supernatural.
So we met in person at the Church IT Network a couple of years ago in Dallas, and that's a pretty cool conference. I mean, it's loaded. Their whole goal of the conference is to serve the people. Everybody walked
Yes.
away with all kinds of stuff there out of that one. Are there other conferences or resources that would help a church IT person develop that you know besides that one?
Yeah, there's a couple for sure. I think that depending on what type of CHMS you use, you could certainly speak with that CHMS platform and ask if they put on a conference. I think that there is certainly value in local peer groups, which I know that CITN can do. I often see that many church IT professionals happen to also be executive pastors or that tied very closely. There are some executive pastor conferences that kind of float around every here and there. But as far as specifics go, I believe the most value and I guess, best conference that there is for this space would absolutely be the Church IT Network conference. And in particular, I think that it would be beneficial to jump on to the Discord chat that they've got and to communicate with people and just to stay in touch with some of those guys. I think also it's really important to mesh with the local churches in your community and to reach out to them because it's a common mission. And in your local area, there may be things that are different in comparison to somewhere else in the United States. Maybe you have a different process for something. Maybe you have a different local ISP that you work with, and you want to communicate with the surrounding churches about things going on in the community with those types of IT companies that might be local. I think it's important to build a community on your own. And I think that there's certainly some responsibility to that as well as showing up to some of these conferences
Mhm.
throughout the year.
Well, thank you, Zachary, so much. It was great to have you on the podcast and speak with you again. If the listeners would like to reach out and get in contact with you, is there a way they can do that?
Absolutely. I would recommend going to my website, lamtele.com, LAMBTELE.com. It just spells Lamb Telecom. Or you can email me at zach@lamtele.com. Or you can give me a call at 720-927-1997. Texts or calls are just fine, and I have no problem putting the number out there for that.
So, thank you for listening to today's podcast. We appreciate you leaving a review, liking, and sharing this podcast wherever you have joined us. I'm looking forward to next week here on Church Tech Careers as we navigate the back office of ministry and how we can have an impact on our community and uplift the members of our local church. And today's video is brought to you by PhoneLive.io.